I sat alone in my new apartment, staring at the bare walls that surrounded me. It was hard to believe how quickly life could change. 8 years of marriage ended after a single family dinner. I still remembered how much I loved Jessica when we first met, how I devoted myself to her happiness and our future together. But over time, the woman I married transformed into someone who took pleasure in mocking me. That night at the dinner table broke everything between us. Before I get into what actually happened that night, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join me on this journey of healing and self-discovery. My name is Martin, and I have always been passionate about literature. Teaching high school English was not just a job for me, but a calling. I loved seeing that spark in my students' eyes when they connected with a story or finally understood a difficult concept. My modest salary was enough for me, as the reward came from making a difference in young lives. I met Jessica at my college friend Tom's birthday party 7 years ago. She walked into the room with confidence that immediately caught my attention. Her sharp wit and ambition were magnetic. Jessica worked in corporate marketing, and her drive to climb the ladder impressed me from our first conversation. I have a 5-year plan to reach senior management, she told me over drinks that night. Most people in my field take 10 years to get there, but I am not most people. I found her determination incredibly attractive. We exchanged numbers, and by the end of that week, we had gone on 3 dates. Our connection felt electric. Jessica was beautiful, smart, and seemed genuinely interested in my passion for education. Our romance moved quickly. Within 6 months, we were talking about marriage. Jessica and I complemented each other well, I thought. She was bold and ambitious, while I was thoughtful and steady. We dreamed about our future together, a beautiful home, possibly children in a few years, and supporting each other through life's challenges. We married at her parents' lakeside property with autumn leaves, creating a perfect backdrop for our ceremony. Jessica looked stunning in her white dress, and when she said "I do," I truly believed we would be together forever. The first 2 years of our marriage were genuinely happy. We rented a small apartment near both our workplaces and spent weekends exploring the city or having dinner with friends. Jessica supported my teaching, sometimes helping me grade papers on busy evenings. I cheered her on through every promotion and late night at the office. When Jessica was offered a position with more responsibility, I encouraged her to take it, even though it meant longer hours. "Your success is our success," I told her, and I meant it. We were a team. We bought our first house 3 years into our marriage. It was modest compared to what Jessica wanted, but it was what we could afford at the time. I spent months renovating it myself, painting walls, fixing the deck, and creating a garden that Jessica said she wanted. We had little traditions that kept us connected. Sunday morning pancakes, monthly date nights where phones were forbidden, and inside jokes that could make us laugh with just a single word. Her family welcomed me warmly at first. Her father, Frank, a retired military officer, would take me fishing and tell me how happy he was that his daughter had found someone who truly cared for her. The problems began subtly around our 3rd year of marriage. Jessica was promoted to senior marketing director at her company, and her new position came with a significant salary increase and a different social circle. Her new colleagues were high-powered executives with expensive tastes and lifestyles, far more luxurious than ours. Jessica started coming home with stories about vacation homes, luxury cars, and private school discussions. At first, she would include me in conversations about our future, how we too would enjoy such luxuries someday. But gradually her tone changed. Thomas and his wife just bought a vacation home in Aspen, she mentioned during dinner one night. When I responded that it sounded nice, she added, "His wife is a corporate attorney. They can afford things like that." The implication was clear, and it stung, but I brushed it off, thinking she was just tired. Then came the first work dinner, where I noticed a real change in how Jessica saw me. We were seated with her new boss and his wife, both impeccably dressed, and discussing their recent trip to Paris. When I reached for the wrong fork for my salad, Jessica kicked me under the table and hissed, "Not that one." Later, she corrected my pronunciation of a wine I had ordered. On the drive home, I tried to talk to her about how her corrections had embarrassed me. "You are being too sensitive," she said dismissively. I was just trying to help you fit in with my colleagues. They are important people, Martin. Those comments about my salary became more frequent. A teacher will never make real money, she said during a discussion about our budget. That is just the reality we have to work with. To contribute more to our finances, I started tutoring students after school and on weekends. But even this extra effort received little appreciation. Instead of seeing my sacrifice of free time, Jessica focused on how small the additional income was compared to her bonuses. Jessica began declining invitations to events with my family. My sister Amber would call with dinner invitations, and Jessica would make excuses about work commitments. "Your family is nice," she would say, "but they are so ordinary. The conversations are boring." One day I discovered significant credit card debt that Jessica had hidden from me. Thousands of dollars spent on designer clothes, expensive restaurants with colleagues, and luxury items I had never seen at home. When confronted, she became defensive. "I need to look the part in my position," she argued. "These are investments in my career which benefits us both." Our intimate life deteriorated as well. Jessica was always too tired or too stressed to connect physically. When I tried to initiate romance, she would sigh dramatically as if I was being an inconvenience. I started to feel like a roommate rather than a husband. The public humiliations began at a dinner party with her work friends. I was sharing a story about a creative project my students had completed that made me proud. Midway through, Jessica interrupted. "Martin loves his little teacher stories," she said with a condescending smile to her colleagues. "So adorable how excited he gets about construction paper and glue sticks." Everyone laughed, and I felt my face burn with embarrassment. Later, when I told her how much that hurt, she accused me of being insecure. "It was just a joke, Martin. Learn to laugh at yourself." On my 34th birthday, Jessica reluctantly agreed to dinner at my favorite restaurant. Throughout the entire meal, she was on her phone, texting and answering emails. When the waiter brought a complimentary dessert and the staff sang to me, Jessica barely looked up, offering a distracted smile before returning to her screen. The comparisons became more direct and cutting. At a neighborhood barbecue, Jessica openly compared me to her colleague David's husband, a successful investment banker. "James just closed a 7-figure deal last week," she announced to the group while glancing at me. "Some men really know how to provide for their families." That Christmas was particularly painful. We spent it with her parents, and Jessica criticized the gifts I had carefully chosen for everyone. "Martin still shops like he is on a student budget," she told her mother, while holding up the cashmere scarf I had saved for months to buy her. I made excuses for her behavior, telling myself it was the pressure of her job that made her act this way. I still loved the woman I believed existed beneath this new, harsh exterior. My friends gradually stopped inviting us to gatherings. After Jessica mocked my friend Paul's modest apartment and career as a graphic designer, the invitations dried up. I became increasingly isolated with Jessica as my primary social connection. My passion for teaching began to wane under her constant criticism. The joy I once found in my classroom was overshadowed by Jessica's voice in my head questioning my career choice. My students noticed the change, and my principal called me in for a conversation about my declining enthusiasm. One night I accidentally saw a text message on Jessica's phone when it lit up on our coffee table. It was to her friend Tara, stuck at home with Martin again. "So boring. Wish I was out with you guys instead of listening to teacher talk." The weekend work retreats became more frequent. Jessica would leave Friday afternoon and return late Sunday, offering few details about these supposedly essential professional events. During these trips, she rarely answered my calls or texts. I started experiencing anxiety about coming home each day, wondering what criticism or cold shoulder awaited me. What had once been our sanctuary was now a place of tension and walking on eggshells. Surprisingly, Jessica's parents began to notice her behavior. Her father, Frank, pulled me aside during a family gathering. "Is everything okay between you two, son?" he asked with genuine concern. "Jessica seems different these days. Not like the daughter we raised." I appreciated his concern but minimized the issues, still hoping things would improve. When I suggested couples therapy, Jessica laughed in my face. "We do not need some stranger telling us how to fix our marriage," she said dismissively. The problem is simple. You need to be more ambitious, and I need to accept that you are not. My father's retirement party became another breaking point. After 35 years as a high school principal, my family planned a special celebration. Jessica insisted she could not attend because of an important work function. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime event for my dad," I pleaded. "And this client meeting could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for my career," she countered. "Your family has retirement parties all the time. All your relatives are teachers or principals or something boring like that." A week later, I discovered Jessica had secretly moved several $1,000s from our joint account to her personal account. When questioned, she claimed it was just in case we had emergency expenses. Her lack of trust and transparency was becoming impossible to ignore. Then came the dinner invitation that would change everything. Jessica wanted to host both our families to celebrate her latest promotion to Vice President of Marketing. Despite everything, I saw this as an opportunity to repair our relationship. Maybe if the evening was perfect, Jessica would remember what we once had together. I spent days preparing for the dinner. I cleaned the house thoroughly, planned an elaborate menu with Jessica's favorite foods, and even arranged for a special cake to celebrate her achievement. I wanted everything to be perfect. Jessica kept changing her mind about details, demanding different seating arrangements and menu adjustments up until the last minute. I accommodated every request, hoping that a successful evening might soften her heart toward me. Both our families arrived on time. My parents, my sister Amber with her husband Jessica's parents, and her brother Alex with his wife. The initial atmosphere was pleasant, as I served drinks and appetizers while waiting for Jessica to arrive home from work. Jessica arrived 45 minutes late, clearly intoxicated from pre-celebrating with her colleagues. Her makeup was slightly smudged, and she swayed slightly as she greeted everyone with exaggerated hugs. "Sorry I am late," she announced loudly. "Had to toast with the executives who made this promotion possible." I quietly guided her to her seat and tried to keep the evening on track, serving the first course and making conversation to cover the awkward tension. When I stood to offer a toast to Jessica's success, she interrupted me mid-sentence. "Actually, Martin, it is pronounced trajectory, not trajectory," she said with an exaggerated eye roll toward our families. "English teacher, everyone." The table fell uncomfortably silent, until Jessica's father cleared his throat and suggested I continue. I finished my toast, though the moment of pride I wanted to express for my wife had been tainted by her correction. During the main course, Jessica formally announced her promotion, describing in detail the responsibilities and benefits of her new position. She thanked her mentors, her colleagues, even her college professors who had prepared her for success. My name was noticeably absent from her speech. My sister Amber, always protective of me, gently asked, "What about Martin? I am sure his support has been important to your success too." That innocent question was the match that lit the fuse. Jessica scoffed audibly. "Martin's support, please." She put down her wine glass harder than necessary. "Do you know what it is like being married to a high school teacher? While I am negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts, he is basically babysitting teenagers for minimum wage." The table went silent. My mother looked down at her plate. Jessica's father frowned deeply. "Our financial situation," Jessica continued, now fully launched into her rant. "All on my shoulders. The mortgage, the cars, the vacations, everything that makes our life comfortable comes from my salary. Martin contributes what amounts to my monthly shopping budget." I sat, frozen blood draining from my face, as Jessica revealed private details about our life to both our families. And intimacy. Jessica laughed, bitterly oblivious to the horrified expressions around her. Try getting excited about someone who gets happy about grammar and poetry all day. I need an alpha male, someone like the men I work with who make things happen in the real world. My sister started to interrupt, but Jessica was unstoppable. "You know what my boss said to me when I got this promotion? He said I have succeeded despite my personal life choices. That was a nice way of saying I could have gone further faster if I had married someone ambitious." The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica continued eating, as if she had simply commented on the weather, unaware of the damage she had just done. In that moment, something crystallized within me. Years of emotional abuse suddenly came into focus with perfect clarity. This was not a rough patch in our marriage. This was who Jessica had become, or perhaps who she had always been beneath the surface. I looked down at my wedding ring, twisting it slightly under the table. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of calm, certainty. Our marriage was over. It had been over for longer than I cared to admit. Would anyone like more potatoes? I asked, quietly standing up. I will just get them from the kitchen. In the kitchen, I leaned against the counter and took several deep breaths. Rather than feeling devastated, I felt oddly liberated. The decision that had seemed impossible for years suddenly felt inevitable and right. I returned to the table with the potatoes and finished the dinner on autopilot, barely registering the awkward attempts at conversation that followed. Jessica remained oblivious to the damage she had done, continuing to talk about her accomplishments, while everyone else exchanged uncomfortable glances. The next morning, while Jessica slept off her hangover, I called an attorney recommended by a colleague who had recently divorced. I secured an appointment for that afternoon and quietly left the house without waking her. The lawyer, a straightforward woman named Diane, listened to my story without judgment. Financial records, text messages, emails, anything that documents the pattern of emotional abuse will help your case, she advised me. Over the next week, I gathered evidence discreetly. I documented the money Jessica had moved from our joint account. I forwarded emails where she had belittled me. I made notes of instances of public humiliation, with dates and witnesses. I called my old college friend Brian, who had remained loyal despite Jessica's disdain for him and his wife. They immediately offered their guest room for as long as I needed it. "We have been waiting for this call for years, buddy," Brian said. "Pack your essentials and come over any time." I planned carefully, knowing that timing would be crucial for both my emotional and financial protection. Jessica had another company event coming up, an annual gala, where she would be formally recognized for her promotion. It would be the perfect moment to make my move when she was surrounded by the colleagues she valued so much more than our marriage. Looking back at the years of subtle and not so subtle emotional abuse, I realized that Jessica's behavior had affected not just me, but everyone who cared about me. My friends, my family, even my students had gotten less of me because I was so depleted by my home life. That realization strengthened my resolve. Exactly 2 weeks after the disastrous family dinner, Jessica was preparing for her company's annual gala. She had not mentioned the dinner disaster once, seemingly unaware of how she had revealed her true feelings about our marriage to both our families. I had arranged everything meticulously. The divorce papers were prepared, and a process server named Rick was on standby. I had given him Jessica's photo and details about the event. The timing had to be perfect. "I will be working late tonight," I told Jessica casually that morning. "Do not wait up for me." She barely acknowledged me, focused on her hair and outfit for her big night. "Whatever. I will probably stay out with the team after the gala anyway." That evening, as Jessica was accepting her formal recognition on stage at the gala, Rick did exactly as instructed. He walked directly to the stage and handed her the envelope containing divorce papers, just as she was midway through her acceptance speech about dedication and commitment to excellence. I was not there to witness it, but according to Brian's wife, Samantha, who worked at a partner company and was attending the gala, Jessica's face went from confusion to shock to rage in seconds. She tried to maintain her composure but failed spectacularly, crumpling the first page of the documents in her fist while trying to continue her speech. Her voice cracked, her carefully applied makeup could not hide her reddening face, and the microphone picked up her whispered, "That son of a bitch," clearly enough for the front tables to hear. Her boss gently tried to guide her off stage, but Jessica shook him off and stormed out of the ballroom, leaving hundreds of colleagues and industry partners watching in stunned silence. The calls started within the hour. First came the rage, Jessica screaming through the phone about humiliating her professionally and ruining the biggest night of her career. "How dare you? Do you have any idea what you have done? This was my moment." I let her vent without responding, which only infuriated her more. Then came the threats. "I will destroy you financially. You will be living in your car when I am done with you." Finally came the pleading, which surprised me most. "Martin, we can work this out. I have been under so much pressure. You know I did not mean those things I said. Please come home so we can talk." I maintained my silence, having said everything I needed to say through the divorce papers. What truly shocked me were the calls from Jessica's parents. Her father, Frank, called first. "I want you to know that we support your decision, Martin," he said gravely. "What Jessica said at that dinner was unforgivable. That is not how we raised her, and that is not how a wife treats her husband." Her mother called next, crying and apologizing as if her daughter's behavior was her fault. I assured her that she had always been kind to me and bore no responsibility for what had happened. Throughout the storm of calls and messages, I remained calm in Brian's guest room. For the first time in years, I slept peacefully through the night, unburdened by the constant anxiety of trying to please someone who could never be satisfied. Jessica attempted to turn our mutual friends against me, sending group texts about how I had blindsided her and abandoned our marriage without trying to fix things. These attempts backfired when several friends responded with instances they had witnessed of Jessica belittling me over the years. After years of feeling trapped and diminished, the sense of liberation was overwhelming despite the pain and uncertainty of my situation. I had stood up for myself, and though the path ahead was unclear, I knew it would be mine to choose. I found a small one-bedroom apartment within my budget and began the process of rebuilding my life. The bare walls and minimal furniture represented a blank slate. I reintroduced myself to hobbies that Jessica had mocked, like playing guitar and hiking on weekends. I reconnected with friends who had been pushed away by Jessica's behavior. Many admitted they had been concerned about me for years but did not know how to help. My friend Paul hosted a freedom dinner with our old college group, and for the first time in years I laughed without restraint. My passion for teaching gradually returned. I developed a special poetry project for my students that won recognition from the school district. The spark that had nearly been extinguished by Jessica's constant criticism began to burn brightly again. The divorce proceedings were less contentious than I feared. Jessica's lawyer advised her that fighting would only result in more public embarrassment, especially since I had documentation of her financial dishonesty and emotional abuse. We agreed to a settlement that was fair, considering our respective incomes and contributions to the marriage. With careful budgeting and my additional tutoring income, I managed to create a stable financial life. It was simpler than what I had with Jessica, but it was honest and sustainable. There was no more luxury shopping debt or secret account transfers to worry about. Dating again was both terrifying and illuminating. My first few attempts were awkward, but each interaction helped me understand what a healthy relationship should feel like. I became better at recognizing red flags and valuing genuine kindness over superficial attraction. Therapy was a crucial part of my healing journey. My therapist helped me recognize the patterns of abuse that I had normalized over the years. I learned how Jessica's criticism and mockery had systematically eroded my self-confidence and isolated me from my support network. "What you experienced was emotional abuse," my therapist explained. "It is no less damaging than physical abuse, just less visible to others." I also focused on physical health, returning to running, which had been a passion before Jessica complained about the time it took away from her. Each mile helped rebuild not just my body but my sense of control over my own life. The hardest part was forgiving myself for allowing the situation to continue for so long. Why had I stayed? Why had I made excuses for Jessica's behavior? My therapist helped me understand the gradual nature of emotional abuse, how it creeps in slowly, until what once would have been unacceptable becomes your normal. 6 months after our divorce was finalized, Jessica sent me an email that surprised me. She had started therapy herself and was beginning to recognize her patterns of behavior. "I never saw myself clearly," she wrote. "Success became my only value, and I measured everyone, including you, by a warped standard. I am sorry for who I became and how I treated you." I chose not to respond to her message. Some chapters are better left closed, but in my heart I wished her healing and growth. Carrying anger would only continue to give her power over my emotional state. The most profound realization through my journey was understanding that self-respect must be the foundation of any relationship. Without it, love becomes distorted and unhealthy. I had confused loyalty with subjugation, patience with passivity. Leaving a toxic situation is not weakness or failure, but the ultimate act of self-love and strength. Sometimes it takes reaching your breaking point to find the courage to save yourself. What surprised me most was how my decision to stand up for myself created ripples that affected others positively. Jessica was forced to confront her behavior. Both our families were freed from the tension of pretending everything was fine. Even my students benefited from having a teacher who had reclaimed his passion and authenticity. My relationship with my family deepened after they witnessed Jessica's true colors at that dinner. My sister Amber later confessed they had been concerned for years but did not want to interfere. "We are so proud of you for valuing yourself enough to leave," she told me during a weekend visit to her family. Watching her healthy, respectful relationship with her husband provided a model of what partnership should be. Today, my life is unrecognizable from 2 years ago. The pain has faded, replaced by wisdom, and a profound appreciation for authenticity in relationships. I am dating someone new, taking things slowly and mindfully. The contrast between my past and present could not be starker. Sometimes endings are not failures, but necessary completions that make space for new beginnings. The dinner that seemed like the worst night of my life turned out to be the catalyst for the best decision I ever made. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that everyone else thought was wrong, but you knew was right for you? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story helped you recognize unhealthy patterns in your own relationships, please like and subscribe for more stories about overcoming challenges. Remember to share this with someone who might need to hear that standing up for themselves is not just okay but necessary. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it brings clarity and courage to your own path.